like to introduce
Brigitte Chaudhry. She's the founder and president of an organization called Road Peace, and in particular she is very much involved at the European level in the European Federation of Road Traffic Victims, and she's going to talk about trauma through loss and lack of justice. Brigitte, thank you.
Thank you. I'm very glad to participate in today's conference on the human impact of road deaths and injuries. In my 20 years as a campaigner for road victims, I have not known of a conference organized by an authority exclusively on this topic. So it's very pleasing to know that the Road Safety Authority in Ireland is looking at the consequences of crashes. My glasses on. We all know statistics, but annual figures are in reality yearly additions to an enormous number of existing casualties from previous years. But they are always presented as if they were of significance only for 1 year. The cumulative toll is rarely considered. And they also ignore the fact that grief and suffering of sudden violent bereavement or injury are long-lasting, often permanent. Nor is the response to road death and injury sufficiently serious. In the general public's and the media response is quite different from that to other violent deaths or disasters. Even gross recklessness resulting in death is often not considered a criminal offense. On the contrary, the term accident is routinely used, which reinforces road user complacency. The legal response, too, is inappropriate to the loss of life or quality of life in case of injuries. Many deaths and injuries are never prosecuted, often because of lack of resources for thorough investigations. And those that are tend to be dealt with in the lowest courts, and sentences represent neither deterrence nor justice for victims. Road deaths and injuries also do not get the priority they deserve from the health sector. Road victims are in particular affected by inadequate rehabilitation provision, lack of trauma care for the bereaved, and insufficient or even absent research into the long-term effects of injury and bereavement. In most countries, the response by governments to the disaster of road death and injury and the plight of victims is felt to be unsatisfactory or inadequate. A higher level of risk is accepted on the roads than anywhere else, as even ambitious 50% casualty reduction targets actually mean, especially to us victims, that thousands of deaths and injuries are being accepted, even planned in, something which is unthinkable for other deaths or injuries. Road safety strategies do not include the post-crash areas. And this is something that our federation, the European Federation of Road Traffic Victims, has been and continues to campaign for. The Federation was founded in 1991 with the objective to promote assistance to road victims at international level, strengthen contacts and collaboration between road victim associations from various countries, giving them a stronger voice, and contribute to road safety by highlighting road danger issues in order to influence institutions and authorities to enforce road safety measures more effectively. In July of this year, we are celebrating our 20th anniversary. The Federation has UN consultative status. At present, we have 22 member organizations from 18 countries, including PARC from Ireland, who have joined last October, and it is very nice to meet our colleagues again here at this conference. Most of the organizations under the umbrella of FEVR offer ongoing assistance to victims through helplines, information written from the perspective of victims, and through case assistance where this is possible. They also campaign on issues of road victim treatment, lack of justice, and various road danger issues. The reason many road victim organizations were being set up during the 1980s and 90s was a steep rise in road traffic injuries and the fact that victims were left without any assistance or help. They suffered twice over when the legal process offered no justice. There was a UN resolution in 1985 which asked governments to take initiatives to protect victims' rights, improve their position in the criminal justice system, and provide medical, social, psychological, and legal assistance to them. But few governments made such commitments, and therefore victim organizations had been moved to respond to the needs of these traumatized people. According to trauma professionals, the basic needs of trauma victims are for full and accurate information, upholding of the human rights, and acknowledgement of the loss and suffering by society, government, and the judicial system. Denial of these basic needs, which is so frequently experienced by road traffic victims, compounds the suffering and is likely to cause psychological harm. Dr. Noreen Tehrani, a psychologist, speaks of victims suffering sanctuary trauma if their belief in fairness and if their beliefs in fairness and justice are shattered through negative experiences. From 1993 to 1996, the Federation conducted a study into the effects of bereavement and injury on the lives of families. A first study of this kind, and we believe still the only one. We are always having hopes to repeat it. At the time, we did it with 9 organizations. Now we could do it with 22. The study made evident that the psychological suffering of victims and victim families is often extreme, with the bereaved affected the most, as this table also shows. 64% suffering depression and 37% suicidal feelings. These are very serious findings. This impact often does not decrease with time, but it may increase, leading to illness or even death. Through its member organizations, the Federation is aware that countless lives are devastated through a death of a close family member. Road Peace in the UK knows of 3 mothers who committed suicide, of 3 suicides in one single family, of siblings who have suffered breakdowns, and of marriages that have broken down. Yet the bereaved are hardly ever considered when we speak of road deaths and calculate their cost. I received an email only 2 weeks ago from a bereaved mother, Joanne, whom I knew very well after the first baby of 5 months was killed in a collision. Her words confirm the long-term impact. And this is what she says. I was thinking this morning about all the interviews we did on the FEVR report, and how often I said the words, "You never get over a road death," but didn't really know what that meant. Now, after 17 years, next week, I'm starting to understand what it really means. I also remember at the time reading that one can only understand and write about such tragedies in the immediate aftermath or 20 years later, the sentiment of which I now also understand, and why I'm making contact after all this time. And she goes on to say, the last 17 years have been an ordeal of survival in many ways for me and Roger. I feel very, very lucky to have 2 other children for whom I must keep going and whip myself along. But it's been an exhausting, debilitating process. And some days I just don't feel like I'm winning or that I even want to. Further findings of the consequences on work and life showed a dramatic decline in living standards and quality of life, aggravated by lack of justice. And now I'm going to show some photos of bereaved people. The first one, and I want to read some more words from victims that illustrate the impact on them. The first person is Caroline, who became a widow. She was seriously injured. She lost one eye in a crash many years ago now. They were stationary at traffic lights and the lorry plowed into their car. Caroline says, I grew up respecting authority and thought that I could just let the law take its course and justice would be done. I was desperately upset that there was no acknowledgement of the terrible cruelty inflicted on our family. The driver was charged with a driving offense, and the death of my husband and my own injury seemed quite peripheral. For the first time since that terrible day, I felt really angry. Angry at the unfair law and the magistrate saying that my husband's death was the unfortunate result of an avoidable accident. The other people are Pam, whose daughter was killed, also stationary at traffic lights, also a lorry plowed into her and her fiancé's car. Ingrid's son was killed at 18 as a pedestrian. But I've got a quote from another bereaved mother, Sarah, who said, after 9 years, the impact continues to reverberate. Our grief and cataclysmic loss has affected each of us. My son, who was 21 at the time, was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress syndrome and has suffered with severe depression. He has found it particularly difficult to come to terms with a great sense of injustice and has lost any respect for the law. My husband and I have decided to go our different ways after 37 years together. Our relationship has been broken by the impact, especially the toll of dealing with the injustice, which has made our loss even more unbearable. Kate was 24, a law graduate, hoping to specialize in family law. She was our joy, the light of our life. Not to have her death acknowledged, not to see justice done, no proper investigation. I'm sure that if the case had been given due attention, the cost would not have been so high. This is a slide of the launch of our Remember Me plaque in the UK. This is it. This was done in August 2003. In the UK, August has been declared National Road Victim Month. And it was launched at the site at the spot where a young cyclist was killed by a left-turning lorry. 3,000 of these memorials have been placed throughout the UK, and the image is used globally, especially for the World Day of Remembrance. And these are some photos of victims. It's a small section from a long band prepared for a projection onto London City Hall to mark the World Day of Remembrance, I think in 2004. And the young woman on the left is Kate, whose mother spoke so movingly. Many of the Federation's member organizations conduct justice campaigns. The organization in Italy is campaigning for respect of the value of lives lost on the road. And they are targeting law change, but also attitudes. And my colleague Marcello from that organization wrote, an administration of justice which is serious and respectful of victims. We need it whatever the law is, and we should have it right now. Suat Ayos, an organization in Turkey, a member of the Federation, is campaigning in particular for justice in hit-and-run cases, and there's a video clip online. Roadpeace in the UK has identified 6 areas as in need of urgent attention in their justice campaign, which was launched in July 1998. I think it's still ongoing, and I'm going to read out the 6 areas. Victims' right to information and consultation, investigations to national standards, criminal proceedings to bring justice, civil compensation to provide fairness and justice, medical care to national standards, and a coordinated government strategy by all relevant government departments, and there are quite a few, and they often don't talk together. A similar campaign would be relevant in most countries. As an NGO, a non-governmental organization representing the concerns of road crash victims, The Federation's main campaign goals relate to the areas after a crash. A serious post-crash response represents prevention in our view, yet the post-crash areas tend to be left out from road safety strategies in most, if not all, countries. Their inclusion has been a long-time campaign goal for our federation, which is one of only few organizations targeting this area among the international bodies and organizations that are working for safer roads. So we have to shout as loud as we can, because there are not many of us. We also campaign for risks to be reduced for vulnerable road users, pedestrians, cyclists, children, the elderly, in order to make road use safer for those who pose the least danger and allow for mobility to become more sustainable in view of the challenge of climate change, which we all face. And we are campaigning for the same provisions and support for road crash victims as for other victims. We strike towards these goals as members or participants of organizations working for safer roads and as respondents to relevant European Commission consultations. The United Nations Working Party 1 on road safety, as a result of our efforts, will include multidisciplinary crash investigation into the future plans. Eva Molnar, director of the UNECE Transport Division, wrote this year, "I believe FEVR is doing already a lot to bring the human perspective to the attention of policymakers." Recently, our efforts were concentrating on plans for the next decade, the decade of action for road safety. As members of the UN Road Safety Collaboration, our federation contributed to the draft of the global plan for the decade, and now Pillar 5 refers not only to medical care, but also to investigation and justice, and has been renamed post-crash response from the original post-crash care. In our response to the European Commission consultation on the fourth Road Safety Action Programme, we advocated, among others, for more research and investigation into the root causes of collisions, including with the assistance of black box technology, and for measures to enforce speed limits and address excessive power of cars. We wrote, lower speed limits strictly enforced would at a stroke reduce injury severity or likelihood of death in case of collisions. It would also encourage more walking and cycling, sustainable modes of transport, which would in turn reduce the threat of climate change, something which is not considered enough. In the response to the EC consultation on services for crime victims, we argued for road crash victims not to be excluded from those plans. The current FEVR president, Jeannot Mersch, attended the press conference on this topic in Brussels last week, on the 18th of May. Together with Road Peace, we sent amendments to the Koch report, also for the Decade of Action, relating to implementation of safety measures for HGVs, inclusion of multidisciplinary crash investigation in road safety strategy plans, and official recognition of the World Day of Remembrance. Our member organizations actively participated in launch events for the Decade of Action on 11th May. They are all committed to continuing the work for road victims during the next decade. Advocacy plans for the decade are based on the NGO Brussels Declaration, and this includes collaboration with global NGOs under a planned global NGO alliance. The plan for a global NGO alliance began when 70 NGOs from 40 countries, many from Europe, met in Brussels in May 2009. A second meeting in New York this year and the wish to work together during the next decade have moved these plans on. The outcome of the first meeting was the Brussels Declaration, a declaration with 33 recommendations from NGOs to governments for the Decade of Action. This is it, and you can find it on the FEVR website, FEVR.org, and print it off. This declaration reflects the wishes of NGOs from many countries. And these words by a colleague from Africa reflect the dedication of NGOs. Change doesn't just happen. It is propelled by men and women whose spirits are provoked and inspired to make a difference. So all of you are also men and women who are able to make a difference. The declaration is signed by 17 NGOs, and I would like to introduce it briefly. The general approach, now the key recommendation is to change drastically transportation policy, giving top priority to safety and sustainable mobility. I'm aware of the time, so I'm going to go on to the next one, which is prevention. And I will focus on the third one, which starts national road safety action plans to be integrated into transport plans and include priority for walking, cycling, and use of public transport, a civil compensation system based on driver liability, and improved enforcement and investigation capacity. So that's very important. The next one is the post-crash response. This is the area very important to us, and I will read. These are the key recommendations. There are like 3 more in the declaration, which hopefully you will print off and read. Priority to improve emergency services and early rehabilitation to prevent trauma. Ensure social, medical, and legal care for injured victims and bereaved families. Thorough investigation of crashes to identify all preventable causes, and ensure justice for victims. Making use of existing research and lessons, no need to reinvent the wheel. An effective, proportionate, and dissuasive legal response to road law breaking and to causing death and injury. And we are also recommending national situational reviews to monitor road collision investigation capacity, the number of criminal prosecutions after road death and injury. There are sadly very few, we find, and a standard, and also monitor the standard of services for road crash victims. That's what we want to see happening during the next decade. Worldwide learning, the main one is to return to sustainable mobility modes. Because we are looking at casualties in the low-income countries where many pedestrians and cyclists are killed, and so road use must be made safer for them. We all travel a lot. We are dealing with many casualties in our organizations that happened in another country. So we are all interested in a global road safety. Joint initiatives and actions. NGOs want to set up well, they're recommending a national advocacy network. And then the official recognition of the World Day of Remembrance, with a main focus on remembrance. There are often held road safety days with a focus on road safety. A national memorial to road crash victims in the capital city of every country, that as a focal point for also events and to remind people of the sacrifices. And we are also recommending that every country sets up an international coalition against road trauma, and to join an umbrella international coalition against road trauma, ICAT. And the last slide is on the World Day of Remembrance. World Day of Remembrance, I think people in Ireland already know about it. It was initiated actually by Road Peace in 1993, soon joined by FEVR member organizations, and for 10 years this day was observed as European Day of Remembrance for road traffic victims. And because of the Federation's membership of the UN Road Safety Collaboration Forum, we suggested that this day be observed globally, and it was adopted on the 26th of October 2005 by the United Nations And these are, this is a quote from the resolution, as the appropriate acknowledgement for victims of road traffic crashes and their families. Road Peace and the Federation drafted a guide for World Day of Remembrance events published by the WHO. This is on the World Day website, World Day website, and also on the World Health Organization website. The UN calls for official recognition of the World Day by all governments to help tackle this the global road safety crisis. And so this is our hope for the next decade, that the World Day of Remembrance will be officially acknowledged in the whole world. A few slides. This is the logo of, from also the single candle. This is an event in a church in St. James's Piccadilly in London in 2001. In Luxembourg, because it's a small country, they were able to actually have the number of killed marching in Portugal, in Croatia, and in Slovenia. Thank you very much.